What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into another episode of Mi Casa es Su Casa, and I am your humble host, as always, Niko House. I want to thank all of you who have been so patient over the last few days. As you've probably noticed at this point, I've been a little absent. Not by choice, but because I've been working on something else. Well, myself and my partners have. Most of you already know that I've announced that I was working with Tim Black and one other partner to bring to you an alternative to this really dystopian Orwellian era of social media that we're experiencing right now. Whether you want to look at Tim Black himself, who's had his live streaming capability taken down, whether or not you want to look at like Jimmy Dore, who hasn't had his live streaming capability taken down, but CNN went directly for their his advertisers or YouTube's advertisers to discourage them from going on channels like Jimmy Dore's. In fact, they tried to put him in the same characteristic or the same category as Nazis and white supremacists and conspiracy theorists. And the premise for that was because he quoted Ron Paul about Syria, about that there's no conclusive evidence. So we've been working diligently to bring you the best quality that we can, and we are finally arrived. We are still in the beta testing phase, but you can register. There are going to be times during the day until we go full green light that the site will be like offline, so you'll have to wait, but you can register, and we will start allowing people to trickle into the platform to test its functionality, to test its capabilities, to give your insight and feedback. For all intents and purposes, you can start sharing your articles, start inviting your friends, and things like that. As soon as you get, really now, if you wanted to. Like I said, it's just that we're still working on some of the features, so they're improving and doing some last minute maintenance. So there are times where it may be down. So the best time to try would be either early in the morning or late at night. But throughout the week, you'll be able to register and see that you did get that approval. It's justinform.com. Once again, people, justinform.com. It's a community networking and news platform. What I like to call the evolution of social media, where we get away from the vanity, the censorship, the hyper focus on things that are just totally unimportant, and get back to having profound conversations, amplifying voices that are objective and fact-based, no matter on what that may be. And not allowing a big brand to determine whether or not someone is seen. Like the fact that a reporter can just be verified and then have their comments taken more seriously because they work for CNN is not fair. Because we've seen pretty much time and time again that a lot of those reports aren't reliable. I haven't had to retract any articles this year. I'm just saying. I haven't had to retract the damn thing this year, but CNN has. So, just want to go ahead and clarify that. So it's justinform, JUSTNFORM.com. Like I said, if you can't get access to it immediately, give it a couple of hours or give it an hour or so. It just means that the programmers may be working on the site. Oh man, got something in my throat, people. Give me a second. But with that being said, we've had a lot of crazy news over this last week, right? Everything from Bill Cosby to North Korea to the Democrats being Democrats still and the Republicans whining while simultaneously whining about the Democrats whining. It's actually really ironic. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about, though, just the consistent theme that I've seen surrounding all three of those issues is the hyper partisan, like emotionally driven responses to literally all three: North Korea situation, Bill Cosby situation, and the Sarah Huckabee Sanders roast situation. All three. It's actually kind of embarrassing how reactionary we are, and it's funny because I know overseas, and I think anybody who is living overseas or living right now in the international community outside of the United States, we are considered the most over-the-top nation when it comes to reacting to certain things. Like, we seriously, not even joking. We are, in a way, we're laughed at. Because, so if one person gets into a car accident, right, then the whole speed limit for all the speed limit for all the country has to drop by 25 miles per hour, instead of attributing it to like a lack of, maybe the manufacturer didn't do a good enough job fixing their car, or maybe the parents didn't do a good enough job teaching them, or maybe we should just chalk it up to accidents because accidents happen. We overreact for everything. And the things that we should be overreacting for, like, for example, human trafficking has skyrocketed. It skyrocketed. Under Barack Obama's, human trafficking multiplied to its greatest numbers in history. But we don't overreact to that. But God forbid, President Moon says, well, Trump does deserve some credit for the economic pressure that he put on North Korea, while simultaneously be willing to listen to their requests. Oh my God, I can't believe he's giving Trump any credit. Trump is a warmongering criminal. I hate him so much. Yo, most of us don't like Trump, but it's a little difficult to hate him as much as y'all do when you do such a bad job of doing it. You know what? I don't like Obama. Obama's a really nice guy. Obama's a sweetheart. Obama can smile in your face and stab you in the back, and you still shake his hand afterwards because he just has that way with people. He has a way with words. He has a way with how he conveys his explanations for his ridiculous policies. And yet, Obama bombed 7 countries. Obama hyper-militarized the police force across the country. Obama refused to acknowledge what was happening across this country when it comes to police killings, even until the latter half of his second term, when he finally pretended like he cared. Obama also went to campaign for Hillary Clinton on the United States dollar, who was a criminal, by the way, in case you were wondering. She is a criminal. Obama is involved in Libya, while we're still upset, and rightfully so, that Saudi Arabia bombed Syria, or excuse me, not Syria, Yemen, on our dollar. Obama was bombing Yemen with our planes and our drones and our missiles. But hey, at least he was smiling and he was so sweet and right? At least he was nice. At least he used lubrication before he bent the entire world over. But if you could at all suggest that at the same time, Trump is not perfect on foreign policy, which I've acknowledged on this show time and time again. If you can acknowledge that at the same time that he may not be perfect on foreign policy, rhetorically, he is abysmal. He's just not rhetorically gifted. He's not good at explaining himself. If you want to talk about his ego and say he's egotistical and he's braggadocious, I would also agree with you. But guess what, people? All those things can be true, and he can still deserve partial credit for what happened between North Korea and South Korea. I know we like to dichotomize things and then put, this has to be in box A, this has to be in box B, this has to be in box C. But understand something. And I've said this in a previous video that I did, but I'll say it again. The people who are trying to argue with you that Trump deserves absolutely zero credit, they're speaking to you from a point of pride and just absurd discontent. For Trump, I mean, it's not absurd to be mad at his rhetoric. I get mad at his rhetoric all the time. But if that's, you got to understand how geopolitics works. The demilitarized zone is ran and maintained by which nations? Obviously, it's maintained to a large degree by North and South Korea. It's their country. But also who? The United States and China. So, ultimately, we can go a step further. Why do you think that one of the key aspects of the deal was that before this recent one was that the United States military had to pull out of South Korea, and that's why they said that was why they never got anything done, because the U.S. would never sign off on that. But the U.S. does have to sign off, and that's why North and South Korea couldn't just make up. That's why North and South Korea couldn't just reopen trades. So now, the United States troops get to stay. I mean, this is just a simplification of it, but the United States troops get to stay. The bases are maintained still, and all of a sudden, the current president who is in charge, signed off, or has given them every inclination that he is going to sign off. And boom. What do we get? Peace between the Koreas. Are we under some impression that that's a coincidence? What's killing me is that, and this isn't even about Trump really, or even the Koreas. It's that we're getting into this point of fringe, and which is sad because I feel like I might be fringe, at least to a degree. You know how I'm fringe? I'm fringe because I just have this really bad habit of being objective all the time. I was talking on the phone to Tim like an hour ago, laughing because I said, you know what, man? I feel like I'm objective to a fault. And he didn't even hesitate. He said, you are, absolutely. I was like, all right, I appreciate it. But no, he's correct. I am objective to a fault on all issues. Now, my ideology, if you have been watching me, has not changed when it comes to my level of objectivity. I've been pretty consistent to a fault. Whereas somebody like Ben Shapiro, the moment that he gets, he'll call out infringed First Amendment rights. He'll call out people who are victims of liberal institutions who get silenced by college students. He'll call that out all day. He'll call it about social justice warriors who whine all the time. Ironically enough, however, Ben Shapiro is one of the most whiny, nasally, ignorant people I have ever met before in my life. I'm trying to stop cussing, y'all. I'm trying to become more polite. I'm the face of a platform now, so I kind of have to try to act professional. We'll see how it goes. But you know what I'm saying? And then you got the left, right? Left does the same thing. Neither side, 99% of the journalists on both sides of the fence are not consistent in their ideologies. And I am, and I hope that most of you can be as well, and that we start making it a point to become consistent with objectivity above all else. Two things can't exist at the same time. I know it's hard to comprehend. You can say all the bad things that you want to about Trump and they would still be true. I want to give a shout out really quick to Yogi Fish. We're still winning the future. Absolutely. Appreciate the super chat, dog. But you can say all the negative things that you want to about Donald Trump and they would still be 100%. They still can be 100% true. And at the same time say, but in this one instance, he deserves credit. Even like yesterday, for example, with the Sarah Huckabee Sanders situation. I said, I had to call out a lot of different people, but on the Republican side, y'all got the nerve to get up and walk out. And then you got some of these conservatives who literally call anyone who calls out legitimate racism. They have the nerve, or excuse me, anyone who calls out legitimate racism, they have the nerve to call snowflake. But these people get up and walk out. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, by the way, handled that exactly how I expected her to, which is why I was even more irritated to see all these people come to her rescue, which, in my opinion, highlighted a more significant issue. Because I said when Obama was getting just ate alive, all Sarah Huckabee Sanders was called was a liar. Obama was called that and more. Everything from an Uncle Tom to even Will. Oh man, I can't remember his last name. Is his name Wilbert? The guy from the Tonight Show who doesn't have a show anymore. He even called out Barack Obama. But it was all in jest. That's what a roast is. And the fact that these conservatives were just so heartbroken over a roast was just beyond me. And it's crazy because I feel like that was like the first time they've even heard of a correspondence dinner. And it was only because now that the Republicans are in charge that they decided to watch it. They're like, oh, this isn't a dinner at all. They're just talking shit about each other. Yeah, that's kind of the point. But then there's a deeper issue, because my objective side always kicks in. So yeah, Obama was roasted, right? Did the world come to his rescue? Did the Republicans come to his rescue? Because there were a lot of black jokes that were thrown, right? Like there were the women was throwing a lot of jokes like that was about women or insulting her femininity in some way, form, or fashion, or lack thereof. There were a lot of black jokes about Obama that were made by black people. So whenever, mind you, and liberal/progressive comedians were also at the correspondence dinner roasting Obama much worse than anything Sarah Huckabee Sanders has experienced. So where was the outrage? They were insulting his appearance, talking about he don't look as good as he used to, literally saying that he was pretty much a genocidal maniac, kind of, or at the very least a punk ass because of what he let Hillary do to his administration. Like, what was the outrage? But then I started thinking, you know what? I know what this is actually about. You know, because remember how the right would also hurl insults at Michelle Obama, calling her a monkey, calling her a man. There was nobody on the right to defend her whenever her appearance was actually being attacked, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders was not. Interesting. And I started to realize something. This might actually highlight a deeper issue. And this is where I started to piss people off, which I'm okay with. It's fine. I'm okay with that. Who do you all believe is the most coddled demographic? Because historically, the patriarchy, predominantly white at the time, has made them that way. They treat them like gems, like delicate flowers. In fact, they were such quote-unquote delicate flowers that they used to make entire movies demonizing black men, saying that all we wanted to do was rape white women. A white woman, I'm sure y'all saw that video that went viral recently, where the woman's kids got pulled over, and she literally started waving her hand in the cop's face, doing all this, and even threatening the cop, told him to shut the F up. Okay. There's been a lot of viral videos like that. You have never in your life seen a white woman get shot by the police officer, and the one time you did, it was international news, and that cop was taken down within the week. Do you see what I'm saying, people? There are a lot of factors that play into that reality, but it is a reality nonetheless. It is such a potent reality that we are living in that the hyper neoliberal left has already been capitalizing on it before most of the country caught on to it. It's what we call in academia white feminism. I believe it's considered, I think it's third wave. Is that what y'all call it? Third wave feminism? In other words, it is kind of like whenever poor white people were like, we want equal rights, but as long as the black people don't get them too. It's kind of like that. It's talking about the women who wanted women's rights, but it wasn't really about equality or equity for all women, just this particular group of women. They just got tired of having to answer to the one person that stood in their way of their success, which was a white man at the time. That's the Amy Schumers of the world. You know what I'm talking about. The Rachel Maddows of the world. You know who I'm talking about. The Sarah Silvermans of the world. The ones who can take any situation and play. And this isn't obviously all of them. What I'm speaking to, if I use a generality like that, just to clarify, when I say white women, it's the same thing when I say white people or white men. I'm speaking about the inherent power structures of that idea of what being a white male meant for the last 100 years in comparison to being a black man or a black woman or a Latino. Same thing with white women. I'm comparing it, what it meant to what it means and the power that is involved with that, the inherent power that comes with that. So not all women, of course not all white women, take advantage of this. But Hillary Clinton did. Did you all talk? Did y'all see the same election that I saw? She has been playing victim for the last year. And guess who jumps to her defense? Everybody. And if you call her out, what are you? You're sexist. But let's remember, people, and I'm not even a fan of Donna Brazile. But if you all recall, because this is the distinction that I want to make. Remember when Donna Brazile came out and just all she did was merely confirmed what we had already figured out, that the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund was funneling money and laundering money from super PACs into state parties and then vice versa. We already knew this. All she did was confirm it. And what happened? The attacks were disgusting. They didn't come to her defense. They didn't come to her defense. When Lisa Bloom defended Harvey Weinstein, she didn't get tore down. She got tore down by people like us. But she didn't get tore down by the media, by the big NBC primetime shows, the daytime talk show hosts, the Ellen DeGeneres of the world. Tulsi Gabbard, when she switched, they converged on her like it was bad. They pounced on her. They took away her funding immediately. They didn't defend her. Of course, there's an establishment-esque narrative that goes on. But think about it. How many men and women on the left defend Melania with their lives? I mean, not the left, but the right. They defend Melania with their lives. And they were the same ones critiquing Michelle Obama calling her every type of physical insult you could think of. Because this isn't, I'm not saying that this is just a problem on the left. This is a problem on both the left and the right. Because of the patriarchy, the history of protecting women, specifically white women, of protecting them. Because remember, with white women, it was protect them at all costs. They're highly vulnerable. We have to protect them. Women and children go first, but that wasn't actually about black women. And black women were slaves. They were sex slaves. And it wasn't like prostitution when you got a choice in it. It was, you're going to have my half-mixed baby, and you're going to deal with it, and your husband's going to raise it like I told him to. So they're viewed in the total opposite light. It's, you shut up until I call you. Now, when we look at even the power structure within the establishment, is who outranks who? Joy-Ann Reid or Rachel Maddow? Rachel Maddow is a gatekeeper. Who's more popular, Judge Shapiro from Fox News or a Tomi Lahren, who I think just lost her job? I would say that Judge Shapiro is much smarter, and I don't even really like her that much. She be hitting and missing sometimes, but she hits a lot, I admit. Tomi Lahren's a total idiot. But who would you say has more pull at the end of the day? That is a structure that has existed that certain women have tried to take advantage of. Certain women in power, I should say. Because that is how the patriarchy has conditioned us. Just like for me, I would say one of my faults as a person, especially in my youth, is that I would get very defensive and aggressive very fast because I was a black man who lived in the South. Because we had to be aggressive. We had to let people know that we weren't going to put up with their nonsense, because we would get either walked all over, or they would try to take advantage of us, or they would patronize us. We would become somebody's pet, if you will. You ever heard of white savior complex? Why they don't let white women take pictures with Africans anymore when they go overseas? But seriously, that's a fault. So I would act very defensive, because that's the condition that society, or that's the way society has conditioned me to be, unfortunately. I've grown out of it in a lot of ways, but it's still there, and I acknowledge it. We all have our problems, our preconditioned views that we don't even realize. The way we handle situations is preconditioned until we teach ourselves to get out of it and to think differently. So the point of me giving you that perspective is that is how an objective mind works. Is that when you want to admit something that may be really uncomfortable, that's hard for you to admit out loud, there's probably an element of truth to it, and you just need to kind of find facts and understanding in psychology and social conditions. You got to be able to back it up. Don't just say ignorant stuff, okay? But my thing is, whenever someone pushes back on you, first you got to be able to dichotomize two things: power and who has historically had power and who hasn't. First, obviously, it goes money. Then it goes white man, and then kind of black man. It's like a mixture between black man and white women, but only if a white woman was rich or belonged to a rich family. And then it was black women. So black women and Latino women get treated worse than anybody. They're marginalized beyond anybody. But my point is that you have to understand first these simple historic breakdowns of power before you can even go into having conversations that you can make a conclusive argument about. Because you know when somebody isn't being objective when you say, okay, I have proof. And somebody says, well, as a woman, say, I didn't ask you as a woman. I just asked you as a question. As a black man, I don't start off my conversation saying as a black man. That's ridiculous. Why do I need to do that? Anya said Jewish is at the top. Yeah, probably. The Rothschilds had enough money to buy a country. So they're pretty high up there. And they kind of influence Hollywood. So that's what happens when you're one of the first to establish currency. But I don't start off my conversation saying as a black man. Why don't you do that? I can start off my conversation with the facts. Then, if absolutely necessary, I'll go into my credentials as a professional. I'll go into my background. Then, if you are challenging me off of your experience versus my experience, then my experience as a black man may become valuable. But that's not the first thing I lead off with. That's not objective. That is you saying, when you start off the conversation with, as a black man, as a white man, it usually means I don't really know the facts around this situation, so I'm going to appeal to my authority as a black male or a white male or a white woman or whatever. When myself, nor any opinion that is willing to be changed and affected, we don't care about who you are as a black man, as a white woman, as a veteran, as a whatever. As a progressive. As a Trump supporter. Actually, Trump supporter kind of makes sense because a lot of times, if they're saying as a Trump supporter, they're about to compliment something about progressives, and it's usually really good. But if they say as a Trump supporter and it comes out good, you gotta be like, I appreciate you letting me know that, dog. I need that ammo so I can tell my friends that not all of y'all are racist because they think all y'all are racist. So I gotta, help, gotta give them some examples of when they're not racist. So seriously though, but objectivity is key. I'm giving you another example. The Bill Cosby case. Everybody has been so hyper emotionally driven about this case that I don't even want to talk about it. I didn't even want to have a conversation about it today. But then I said to myself, if I don't want to have a conversation about it, probably means I need to have a conversation about it. There are all these different narratives flying around. There are a lot of lies actually flying around about that case in particular. I correct lies. I can't help it. It's actually a visceral reaction. If you'll see me on, I don't even get on Facebook that often, on my personal page anymore. I've been on there recently because I will see something and I'm like, oh, I cannot let this go unchecked. I gotta give scope. Now, when someone has said, because I've said, I believe that there is a 99% chance that Bill Cosby at some point sexually assaulted a woman. 99% chance. Why? One, he's a male. At the very bare minimum, he sexually harassed somebody. At the very bare minimum. He's rich. He has power. And rich men with power mixed with alcohol and drugs, reservations aren't that high. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. Now, with that being said, I can acknowledge that he is probably guilty of this and still say, but the case in question where he was finally proven guilty is bullshit. I can say that. Both things can be true at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive by any means. Because what people automatically assume is that because remember, he wasn't guilty of rape, so people are calling him a rapist. He wasn't found guilty of rape. He was found guilty of sexual assault because the rape case was actually thrown out. People don't know that. That case originated in 2002. It was thrown out because they were like, this woman is incredulous as hell. And on top of that, there was a DA. It's like a lot of corruption involved politically with the like the DA who retried Cosby. He ran his entire campaign on this, which was weird, and he got a bunch of big Hollywood backers because of it. And then Lisa Bloom comes into the picture. If you don't know who Lisa Bloom is, you better do some research on her and her mother, Gloria Allred. They are brand assassins. If for I know there's some Trump supporters out there that was following the case in October, November timeframe when they tried to get him accused of a rape case. I can't remember, a sexual assault or rape case. And guess what happened? Guess what they found out? They found out that Lisa Bloom was getting these women paid off by Media Matters with Brocky Boy. And so all of that got thrown out because the goal of it wasn't to actually reach a guilty verdict. The goal of it for Lisa Bloom was actually to just defame someone's character. There are lawsuits that happen with all of your favorite actors, actresses, singers, pop stars, whatever, all the time. You all don't know about it because even whether they're guilty or whether they're innocent, their brand is most important, and so they don't actually pursue them. They just pay the settlement. That's why you have a lot of people now who make everybody sign stuff before they have sex. Probably smart. We don't even have to go into the whole race thing. I'm just saying we don't even have to go into the detail, like the super details. But we can just go into the basic surface, like the actual surface, not the, he admitted to drugging women. People keep saying that, but that never happened. That isn't in any of the transcripts. What he admitted to my knowledge, that I've read, was that, yeah, I've taken drugs at the same time that other women have taken drugs in the same room as me. Because that's what happens at parties. He admitted that. But that's not the same thing. And that quote has been used over and over and over again. That's an emotionally reactionary quote. Then we look at the fact that that particular judge had a lot of conflict of interest, mainly that his wife was openly holding events to advocate for Amy Constant during the trial. He should have recused himself, but they said that they couldn't find any proof that it was a conflict of interest. It was a kangaroo court. Here's why that should scare you. Because people are getting so emotionally caught up. That is associative psychology. It's group associative psychology. Many women, I would say roughly 95%, if not more, have been sexually assaulted or abused or harassed in their lifetime. That is a fact that most men don't want to face. Because of that fact, almost every woman is going to have an emotional connection to a sexual assault story. Just like because, like, the reason they threw kids, like for the March for Our Lives, they threw the kids out front and made us believe that they were organizing everything when the kids didn't organize a damn thing. I know because I was supposed to be involved in it. Because every one of us is going to have a kid, has been a kid, or has kids currently. So it's an emotional thing. So that's group associative psychology. You associate an event, and then they amp up and amplify the event, and they hyper focus on it. Then you ignore facts like what I just said. Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred, who, by the way, Gloria Allred is like under investigation for like 2 of her bar associations for corruption. Lisa Bloom just got caught working with Brock for Media Matters. Lisa Bloom, the same person who came out and actually defended Harvey Weinstein, was his chief advisor and his attorney defended Harvey Weinstein and said that she would defend him against sexual assault, his sexual assault victims, even though she's supposed to be the feminist who advocates for sexual assault victims. Now they bring together this panel of 8 women, and Janice Dickerson admits in the memoir that she lied. My issue isn't necessarily with the assumption that at some point Bill Cosby may not be the best person, may not be the person we thought he was. I never put anybody that on that high of a pedestal, because I assume that nobody is perfect. I even assume that he, like I said, there's a 99% chance that he committed sexual assault, given his position. But I am not going to allow a kangaroo court to remove common sense from the conversation for me. I'm not going to ignore glaring discrepancies in a system that may one day try me or may try you. I am not going to ignore the consistent pattern in the establishment that we have seen. The most simple one I can point to is, hey, how often has the mainstream media used all of their power, all of their personalities, and harped on someone, and it turned out to be for a legitimate cause, rather than something that someone or one company personally has to gain? The mainstream media never harps on anything that's legitimate. Y'all been watching me long enough to know this? If you've been watching independent media long enough, you know this. So if the mainstream media all focused on, like, when they all focused on Michael Jackson, and now everybody's coming out and saying how bullshit that was, because it was. But Michael Jackson also, he actually started speaking out heavily against the establishment right before pretty much his downfall. He was talking about encouraging other record labels, or excuse me, other artists to go independent, do for themselves, stop depending on record labels. And you know, Michael Jackson's words was the gospel back then. And so what happened? And guess what? Was he found guilty of anything? But everything he did made the news. All his deals cut. Think about that. Bill Cosby had the same thing happen. Everything about Bill Cosby, his upcoming, like, he had like a show, I think, coming up. Not, I don't think featuring him, but he was writing it and directing it. Every endorsement, everything, thrown out the window almost immediately before any of the facts got brought to the case. Meanwhile, men have been being accused in Hollywood before the Me Too movement forever. Do y'all not remember this little thing called the casting couch? I want you all to look up an interview by Tyra Banks where she literally talks about every single woman that she has ever known in Hollywood. Every single one of them has been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, or forced into the situation to get their part, to protect their livelihood, by sleeping with somebody. They pretty much tell you, you can have it, but only if you do this. So, like, the fact that Lisa Bloom, and this is just what the logical connection I want to make. The fact that Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred decided that, you know what, out of all those issues that took place, let's call out Bill Cosby instead. It's like, hold on. How many people has Bill Cosby put on the casting couch? I don't know. I'm not saying he didn't, but what I'm saying is the significance. Because people say, well, yeah, the excuse is, what about Harvey Weinstein? What about so-and-so? What about this? There is significance to saying, what about Harvey Weinstein? Because guess what? Harvey Weinstein wasn't held accountable, and nothing that he did has been thrusted into the media Like, his court case isn't even getting any traction by the media. You think that's by accident? Kevin Spacey was popular for all of 2 days. Then he said, I'm gay, and everybody forgave him. That was really weird, by the way. Like, it was weird how he did that. He's like, did you sexually assault or sexually harass this little boy? Yeah, but it's cool because I'm gay. And everybody's like, oh, it's cool. Like, what? Think about that. So Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred, especially Lisa Bloom is his advisor, Harvey Weinstein advisor, has been for quite a while, knows about the things that he's done. But you put together this panel of random 8 women where one of them has already admitted to lying. And what? I'm just supposed, we're supposed to look the other way? There's inconsistencies. The only consistency is that I see all of the mainstream networks harping in on Bill Cosby. Just like you see all the mainstream networks and all of the mainstream personalities and like Snapchat, for example, has he gone crazy? Has he gone mad? What's going on with Kanye? Why? Because who was the only rapper to not back Hillary openly, like when she asked him to during the election, to not back the establishment? As a matter of fact, if you've ever listened to Kanye's Yeezus album, people like he loves white supremacists. He just loves Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. Kanye hates the establishment. The establishment has made him, has prevented him from progressing in his career to the degree that he would like to, because he wants to employ other people and give opportunity. Trump is outside of the establishment, so he gravitated towards them. I see someone on YouTube said he was going to buy NBC. Actually, yes, he was going to buy NBC, and he tried to twice. The first time was in 1992. It was outlined by a New York Times article. He was prevented from doing so for unknown reasons. The money made sense. He had all of the he had his money and other investors, and they didn't give him a reason why. And then I think that was around the time that his son got killed on the highway randomly for no reason. Talking about Bill Cosby, by the way. But he was going to buy NBC. NBC was like his baby. He made a shitload of money for NBC and from NBC. And he wanted to take it and turn it into a more equally represented network for both parties. Like for not just white people, not just for upper middle class black people, but for everybody. So there's possibly that aspect of it. But my point is that it's scary to me how emotionally reactionary people can be, because that reactionism gets used against us all the time. That's what was used against against us during the Hillary Clinton situation. If you don't like Hillary Clinton, you're a sexist, huh? Like, really? Am I? But I've never even mentioned her. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, people. I'm raised by a single mother. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the abilities and convictions of women, to the degree where I think that a lot of the times they're actually more talented than us in specific fields, but men don't like to admit it. Like, for example, like coding and things like that. If you remember the MySpace days, women had coding on lock. HTML was booming for women. They knew they had all the fancy backgrounds and all the fancy music, because remember, you couldn't do that. You couldn't decorate your background like you could today with like WordPress. You had to use HTML. Like, women are great, and I have a lot of respect for women. So when it came to Hillary, whenever people started talking about her sex, I was like, hold on, I actually forgot she was a woman. Not saying that I don't know she's a woman. What I'm saying is, in regards to her running for office, my first inclination wasn't to think, wow, this is going to be the first women president. I was thinking, yo, this woman is a murderer. This Secretary of Defense, or excuse me, former Secretary of State is evil. Not in comparison with other women, not compared to men. She was, woo, man. She put some men to shame. But that emotional reactionism was used against us and is being used against us today. Why do you think they can only focus on things like some of the quotes that Trump said about her? Like calling her a nasty woman. First of all, Hillary is a nasty person. They get pussy hats. They take novelty quotes and novelty material items, combine that with a hyper focus on certain aspects of politics or certain aspects of an issue on all the mainstream media, and then they drill it. Drill it. Until you just start believing it and you have no choice but to react. What was the Women's March about, people? We talked about this before. What was the Women's March about? The Women's March was about... We don't know. We don't know what it's about. We don't know because they didn't talk about anything except for how much they hate Donald Trump and how much they're resisting him. That's it. Like that's all. That's a problem. Because that means it was holistically built upon emotion. People's emotions get used against them all the time. And that's what scares me about the Bill Cosby case. So we can admit 100%, like there's 99% chance that Bill Cosby is a sexual assaulter of some way, form, or fashion. Whether he knows it or not, whether other people will care to admit it. But at the same time, that can be true. And this could be a kangaroo court that we should be paying attention to because like I said, you never know when it's going to be you on the other side of that gavel potentially. You never know. Look what they tried to do with Bernie Sanders. And his wife, Jane, she's under FBI investigation. They started making up all kinds of facts about her. But the situation with the college, the university, was not an emotional issue. So people could take a step back and say, this is stupid. All these facts are wrong. What's going on? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Think about it. Nobody believed that for a second. You know, the attacks on Bernie. Bernie's a millionaire. 3 houses. He's not a millionaire, by the way. But wasn't emotional. So you can take a step back and look at the facts. But with the Cosby situation, because of how many women have been wrongfully abused, all it takes, if you say 99 women came out against him, we haven't even seen that. The number has changed tremendously. And it only changed because of Gloria Allred and Lisa Bloom, who are establishment, like they are brand assassins. That's what they do. So I get scared when I see people react like that to anything. And that's why my objectivity acts is faulty sometimes. It's not faulty, but it can be a fault when you're trying to understand. When you're trying to help people understand. Like, there's patterns. Whenever the mainstream media focuses on one person, it's because somebody has stepped out of line. Scapegoating, like they're I can't even pronounce his name, but the Asian guy from Equifax who was fired, I think it was chief information officer, chief security officer. He was fired for doing insider trading. His counterparts, however, were not. He did something wrong. He tried to commit a crime. And at the same time, I can admit, and it can be true, that he was scapegoated so that other people didn't get in trouble. You see do you get where I'm going with this? Somebody could have done something wrong, but it doesn't mean we don't watch our six. Which means it doesn't mean that you should not be paying attention to what that could potentially mean for everything else in the big picture. Because if you know your history, this isn't the first time. Remember how they made Ali out to be a unpatriotic communist sympathizer? People forget because we glorify Martin Luther King now, but Martin Luther King was painted as a communist sympathizer. Remember what they did to the Black Panthers? KKK and the Black Panthers were alive at the same time, but Black Panthers were considered a terrorist organization, communist sympathizers. I already told you what they did to Michael Jackson. They take people who are vulnerable and minorities because of how we're portrayed, of all shapes, colors, and whatever. All of us are easy targets. So we're going to get ready for our break before the call-in show, which I'm excited about. I'd love to hear your opinions on these controversial issues. I'll make sure I'll put the phone number up. And go ahead. All right, everybody, we are back from our commercial break. Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Mikasa Sukasa. This is our call-in show. So, if you feel like going toe-to-toe, if you feel like giving your opinion, if you feel like dealing with the controversy that is Niko House, this is your opportunity, people. This is your chance. Before I go ahead and go into the actual call-ins and start taking calls, I want to go ahead and cover this story about the DNC that I'm sure a lot of you had heard about the audio. Give me 1 second. We're going to pull it back up. I deleted it. I need an assistant. But essentially, the Democratic Party, or Democratic operatives, are doing the same thing that they have been doing. They just got caught this time. It was leaked. I think it was leaked to The Intercept because they are definitely the ones who reported this story. It was reported by Lee Fang. Essentially, Steny, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I apologize if I'm not, my bad. But Steny Hoyer, the #2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, has for years been a prolific campaigner on behalf of current and potential members of Congress. It was no surprise then that December found him in Colorado, where the party has high hopes of knocking off the Republican incumbent Mike Kaufman. And so, with Hoyer in Denver, Tillman met with the minority whip at the Hilton in Denver downtown to make the case that the party should stay neutral in the primary, that he had a more plausible path to victory than the same centrism that Kaufman had already beaten repeatedly. Hoyer, however, had his own message that he wanted to convey, that Tillman should drop out. In a frank and wide-ranging conversation, Hoyer laid down the law for Tillman. The decision, Tillman was told, had been made a long time ago. It wasn't personal, Hoyer insisted, and that there was nothing uniquely unfair being done to Tillman. This is just how the party does it everywhere. Oh, man. Let me tell y'all something. It's sad because he's right. There was nothing uniquely unfair about what happened to Tillman. He's not lying. The Democratic Party, how many times have I told you, how many people I've done work with? Stephanie Myers in Florida, Tim Canova I'm working with right now. I know candidates in California, New York, well, really all over the country. Obviously, I worked on a few political campaigns. And he is right. There is nothing uniquely bad about what's happening to Tillerson. He was right. The Democratic Party made their choice a long time ago. And he was probably before and above all else, he was right that he probably is the best candidate, Tillerson is. And because he's the best candidate, because he would be extremely successful, and because his success would come from talking about the fringe issues that the Democratic Party has abandoned, that is why he was not allowed to win. Simple as that. They want somebody that they can control in Congress. They want somebody who they can count on their vote in Congress. They want someone who is actively taking super PACs. It's like when you force someone to take a bribe because you know that now their hands are dirty too. This was not news to anybody. But this recording that leaked proved that the Democratic Party, because this is one of the top operatives. Hoyer's one of the top operatives in the Democratic Party, as the article pointed out. And as one of the top operatives, he was letting Tillerson know, yeah, you're not going to win. You should just drop out. So they let this man run in the prime. What's the point of holding a prime? Let me tell you something. That's why we pursued the DNC fraud lawsuit. And that is why people are so outraged. And that is why it is laughable if not really disgusting, whenever you see Democratic loyalists try to say this is just politics. Do you know why they have a primary process? The primary process exists because they know that under federal law, if they simply went about picking their candidates, they could actually be considered a monopoly, by the way, at that point. They should be considered a monopoly anyway, but that's neither here nor there. If they went about picking their candidates, it would be against federal law to do so. Who would want to be, and not only that, who would want to be part of a party who actively handpicks the candidates instead of allowing the people to choose? In fact, at this point, it looks like the Democrats are just running primaries to figure out who the people want so they can pick whoever the hell they want that isn't going to adhere to what the people want. It's frustrating, but not unexpected. But that, unfortunately, kind of just reaffirms why so many people, 20 million people, have left. It unfortunately reaffirms why Trump is looking to win another victory in 2020 unless somebody, probably like a Tulsi Gabbard or maybe Bernie, when he finally starts getting his foreign policy act together. Like, it's going to take something like that and then some, because of how corrupt the party is. The party is so corrupt that its progressive members are now losing credibility just because they have a D attached to their name. What the hell? And I keep telling people, it can't last. Because if I'm a Democrat, or if I'm a Democratic donor, or I'm just a lobbyist in general, why would I keep donating to both parties if you're so weak, your base is so disengaged, that I can just pay off the Republican, pay him more money, save money on paying both of you off, and just make sure you never step foot in the house. Right now, there is 1.5 candidates I think can beat Trump. That is Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the 0.5 because he keeps letting Cory Booker like just stay attached to his damn hip. And he got it. He's wrong on Syria, dead wrong. He's wrong on Russia, clearly. I don't think he actually believed about the Russia. I don't think he believed the Russia nonsense, but I do believe he trusted the intelligence for the Syria conflict, which is a fatal mistake. Tulsi Gabbard, however, is a veteran that conservatives love. Tulsi Gabbard, however, which is the only congresswoman right now, or any legislator in history, goes to a side and says, you know what? Can we just stop bombing each other for a second and figure out what the hell is going on? And everybody's like, nah, why would we do that? You know what? I got it. Tulsi Gabbard actually hops on a plane and flies over there and has a conversation with him and figures out how to move forward. And then when she figures out how to move forward and she pushes a bill through to get it taken care of, guess what they do? They ignore her. They killed it. You know what that bill was called? Stop Arming Terrorists Act. That's what it was called. It was called the Stop Arming Terrorists, and it failed. Who failed? Who killed it? The Democrats or the Republicans? Both. So, my point is, the Democrats are shooting themselves in the foot to the point where even the candidates that could potentially win are being harmed by their bad rep. It's like there aren't all bad Republicans out there. People think that every Republican is bad. I've met several great Republicans. I mean, like Republicans fighting for single payer health care. I've met Republicans fighting for criminal justice reform. I've met Republicans fighting against the private prison industry. I've met Republicans more disgusted with the actions of the George Bushes of the world, of the rhetoric of the Donald Trumps of the world, of the disingenuousness of the Ted Cruzes of the world. But guess what? They get overshadowed by the Ted Cruz, the Marco Rubios, and the rhetorics of the far right Donald Trump people, the Mitch McConnell people. They overshadow the good Republicans, just like the Democrats are now overshadowing the progressives. It's like my mom used to say, you can do 100 good deeds. You do one bad one all of a sudden, like a legitimate, like a very bad deed, then the people forget. And all that matters at that time is the bad deed that you've done. That's just how human psychology works. Ask Bernie Sanders, he's feeling that right now. He did a lot of great. He did a lot of great things. But guess what? Well, you lied about Russia, or you're wrong about Russia, and you're wrong about Assad. And not only were you wrong about it, because remember, my issue, personal issue with Bernie is still pissing me off. I love the guy to death. You all know this. I love his policies. You all know this. But it pissed me off when you called him a war criminal, and then whenever Rand Paul came out and said, well, there's no evidence. And then the evidence came out, there was no evidence of chemical attacks. You did not retract those statements. You did not correct those statements. Whenever this evidence came out disproving the Trump-Russia connections, you did not come out and retract those statements. You fed into the McCarthyism. In the Assad situation, by the way, people, I know it doesn't seem like it, but that is McCarthyist Cold War rhetoric also. How do you think we got into half of our wars in the Middle East? We think that Russia's helping them and they're communists. Let's go get them. I'm so serious. It was, I know it seems like it, like, how could anybody be that stupid? People were. That is McCarthyist. It's McCarthyism. It just is it's a different brand of McCarthyism. It's a contemporary neo-brand of neo-McCarthyism, I guess is what you call it. So, moral of the story is, Democrats, stop shooting yourselves in the foot, you idiots. God damn, tired of dealing with y'all. I can't even talk about, you know, I'm a nerd, y'all. I am a policy nerd. I love talking about policies. When people want to argue with me about like people, I hate it. It makes me cringe. I don't care about Trump. Trump is going to be Trump, no matter what I say, what you say, what any of us says. But what we can influence, however, no matter what, are policies. Why? Because Lyndon B. Johnson was an overtly racist douchebag. But guess who signed into existence the civil rights amendments after the Congress voted on it? Half of Congress were still overtly racist douchebags. But guess what happened? They still were able to sign in 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Why? Because policy can be influenced. People's personalities can't be fixed until their 60s, 70s, and 80s, people. That's not realistic. So harping on a person's social deficiencies, if they already won, you can talk about it, but as long as it's in reference to policy and it's backed by fact. You notice how none of the attacks on Bernie Sanders during the election were about policy from Hillary Clinton and from her little stooges? He should have dropped out. Why? Was his policy, was it worse than Hillary's? No, not really. He just should have just let her have it. It was her turn. It doesn't matter. Like, she's not even more likable than this man is. What? It doesn't matter. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Were the policies about Trump? Like, did they talk about policies in Trump? No. They talked about the wall, the same wall that Obama advocated for, the same wall that Hillary Clinton advocated for in their respective runs against each other. They talked about that his rhetoric was despicable in that conversation. Absolutely. That's why they coined it a Muslim ban, because it isn't the idea of him only banning Muslims, but it is the backlash and the reverberation from that rhetoric that makes people believe that inherently Muslim people should be feared more and be vetted more than anyone else that comes into this country. That refugees are always Muslim whenever I live in Miami, people. Trust me when I say, there are plenty of Venezuelan refugees. And you would never call them refugees because of how they look. Because we have not been trained to consider a white Spaniard, a white Spaniard like descended person a refugee. We don't consider them refugees. There's a lot of Russian or like Eastern European refugees. But you don't consider them refugees. Get my point? A lot of Mexicans, believe it or not, are actually refugees because of the corrupt system that unfortunately we helped to perpetuate and propagate. Our CIA helped to. I'm not going to say us because I wasn't part of that. The CIA made Colombia what it is economically, Venezuela what it is economically, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Puerto Rico. I mean, we can go on for days. Dominican Republic, Jamaica. Well, actually, Great Britain is responsible for Jamaica's situation, but that's a different discussion. So go ahead. If you got any input on any of the conversation that we had today, go ahead and dial 218-339-88525. I'm gonna go ahead and go through some of these YouTube comments because they keep me entertained. Oh, I see Alan popped in. Alan, where you been at? I've been trying to look, y'all. Alan from MCSC Network. I'm calling him out right now. Over here talking about some Laverne versus U.S. House of Representatives. Alan, when you gonna do my podcast? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You over here talking about Laverne and representatives. You know more people would know about the case if you would do podcasts and talk about the case, Alan. Mr. MCSC Network journalist. Oh man, Alan said, but he does make a good point. He said it's why the conversation that we had about the Democrats is exactly why the Laverne versus the U.S. House of Representatives case is so important, which is very, very true. He said neither Tulsi or Bernie are qualified because they're both still lying to the American people about representation. I'm not sure how they're lying about representation though, Alan. I think that's a kind of a inflammatory statement, actually. They can't. I don't think they've not lied. They haven't told me anything about representation in this country. They just don't talk about it because they probably don't know about. They probably don't know. I don't think that makes them unqualified. It just means if they fix that issue, then they would probably be more qualified. I think I'm not really a one issue kind of person, but he says the current policy is to lie for the sake of towing the party line by corporate owned agendas. Well, yes, that is true, but I haven't actually heard anybody lie directly. Now, the party lies, but Tulsi Gabbard, who I'm relatively connected with, has not lied about anything. She hasn't even talked about it. I don't think she knows this case exists. But either way, I do agree with you that this is a huge case, and a lot of the issues that we have in this country would not even be possible. The idea of controlled opposition, it's hard to control 6,000 people. I don't give a damn how much money you, because that's what happens. Because what Alan is essentially saying, because in case you don't know, the Laverne versus the U.S. House of Representatives case is we're highly underrepresented by our current House of Representatives because it was supposed to increase with population, and it did not. It is not. In fact, it's been capped out for some weird reason. And it's funny because even that, I just like, man, I need to go back and tell my 10-year-old self, don't listen to shit in these books. They are lying about everything. They may potentially get a name right and maybe even a date. But if they're telling you a rule or a law or the reason a law happened or a reason a rule exists, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. Because what Alan's saying is true. Why do you think they don't want 6,000 people or 10,000 people? They don't want them because you can't pay off 10,000 people. You can, but you gotta pay a lot more, and you know, capitalism kicks in. You gotta pay more. I mean, the competition gets real. You can't rig elections as easily. More people are watching you to rig, like they're watching to see if you're rigging the election. So it is very important. But I will say this, Alan. I will say this. It is never wise legally for a congressperson or any politician who is not directly involved in any particular case, even then, to speak up without actually being called to the stand. That's anything. Like legally, their legal advisors would never allow them to do it. I'm just being honest. 856, I'm pretty sure this is Alan giving me a call right now. 856, you on the line? Hello. 856? 856, you're live. Hello. I'm going to assume that's Alan. It is Alan. Alan, you're live, but I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm going to drop you and give me a call back.
I didn't open up the phone lines because I didn't know you wanted them.
Oh. Okay, well, he's going to give me a call back. It's fine. But Alan's going to give us a call back. He's probably going to just tell y'all what I just told you. But but yeah, essentially it's hard to pay out 6,000 people. So but anybody, by the way, Alan's calling in, but I encourage anyone else who wants to have this conversation or talk about anything else that we talked about on the show, whether it be the Trump with the North Korea situation or the Dems or any other things we talked about. But I'm gonna try to get Alan back on. Alan, you here? Alan. Okay.
The phone lines are not.
Oh, they're off.
The line is being occupied. I'll let you know.
Ah, okay. Got you. Oops. Alan, the phone lines are currently occupado. They're occupado at the moment. We'll try to get you on as soon as they get free. So if you want to call in, I'm just gonna leave you on hold until we can get you on the show. Somebody tell him that in the comment section if you're listening. But some other crazy stuff happened this week too, and I cannot remember what it was. Something happened with the Democrats. Oh, hopefully somebody can verify this for me. Did we confirm Mike Pompeo and then attack Syria again? Because, why did I go to Google? I know better than to go to Google. We're going to DuckDuckGo. We're going to find this out together. It crossed my mind, or it crossed my eyes earlier. Oh man. Hey, by the way, if you're looking for any type of information that may be a little controversial for mainstream, make sure that you use DuckDuckGo. It's not an official endorsement, but I use it. That's all I'm saying. Let me see. I know. Hold on. What? This is February. I remember that attack. Does anybody have, if you do remember this, please, or if you've read about this in the last couple of days, please, Alan, I see, Alan, you back on. So I just told you, I don't know if you heard it, The line is currently being occupied. So I will have to try and get you back on before the show is over when it is unoccupied. But you should have let me know before you came on, man. Man, you got all this free time. Look, y'all, I'm calling out Alan again. I got all this free time. I'm only messing with him because I love him and he's on my network, so I can do that. I got all this free time to call into my show. As much time as he done spent calling into my show, he could have did a whole podcast and we could have posted it on the YouTube channel so y'all can hear him talk about this entire situation for as long as he wanted to talk about it. He wouldn't even have to call in. You get all high definition sound quality. He would have looked all, look, Alan, everybody in the media or everybody in the comment section, tell Alan that he needs to do the podcast on the show, post on the channel and on the network so y'all can hear what the hell he got to say about the issue. Yeah. I'm calling you out, bro. But I hate the fact that Mike Pompeo was elected, by the way, or was confirmed. Man, I can't find it. I guess it didn't happen. Let me see. April. Uh-oh. Ooh, no, it did happen. Okay, so this is actually breaking on, it was reported by Fox News and it was reported by The Telegraph. Suspected Israeli missile strikes shook Syria on Sunday with enough force to register as an earthquake as blast targeted 2 Iranian-linked military bases and left nearly 30 pro-government fighters dead. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that the late Sunday night attack appeared to have been carried out by Israel to destroy an arms depot for surface-to-surface missiles at a base in northern Syria near Aleppo. Okay, I'm just like, it's kind of weird because Aleppo is like not in the government-ran Syria, but okay. Anyway, the observatory said those killed were mostly Iranians, while 4 Syrians were also among the casualties. Iran's semi-official news agency. How the hell do you have a semi-official news agency? You can't be semi-official. It's either you are, and they're gonna quote them. You can't get semi-official. That's called propaganda. Iran's semi-official news agency, ISNA, said that the strike killed 18 Iranians, including the commander, in a suburb of the central city of Hama. It cited local news sources and activists for its report of the missile-targeted buildings and centers, which likely included a weapons depot. Man, I love, Fox News is all about. They love them some Israel, and they hate them some Iran for some really weird reason. It's not actually that weird, people. I'm not going to lie to you. It's McCarthyism once again. I'm going to read the Telegraph's article about it because that was the shadow war between Israel and Iran and Syria. That's more like it. Call it what it is. That's what it is. It's a shadow war going on right now. But it escalated sharply on Monday after suspected Israeli strike. Why do they keep saying suspected? Anyway, one strike tore through the military base dug into the mountain near the central city of Hama on Sunday night, causing explosions so large that it registered as a 2.6 magnitude earthquake. There was no claim of responsibility for the attack, but the suspicion immediately fell on Israel, which has carried out a number of strikes as it's tried to prevent Iran from building up a military presence in Syria and transferring weapons to Hezbollah, a Lebanese military group. What? That doesn't even... Okay, so that's propaganda. That's propaganda. How do you go from... People, how do you say Israel, which carried out a number of airstrikes it tries to prevent Iran from building up a military presence in Syria, which is true, and transferring weapons to Hezbollah and the Lebanese military group. I mean, I don't know if that's actually true or untrue, but that's a really weird jump. And like, that's a huge claim. That is a huge claim that Syria would be doing, or Iran would be doing exactly what the United States does, which is actually funds and transfers weapons into rebel groups. In fact, I think it's pretty safe to say that Israel is not as pivot, exactly. Israel tries to make itself very important. They got the what do I call it? They got like the little dick syndrome. They're so small. It's so small, so tiny. Israeli government is so tiny. But they got their big brother, the United States, backing them up. So they're like, they hide behind the big brother, like, man, you lucky my brother's here. You lucky my brother's here, or else I'd be setting it off up in here, bro. Pew pew pew, shooting a little pea shooter from behind a big brother. But Israel wants to expand because it does not, it sees itself as, I want to call the United States a little boy toy. It's like a little, they're a little, like Pepe. Is that what his name is? The dude off of Fantasy Island. Is it Pepe? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Tutu? TT? Tattoo? Maybe it's Tattoo. I think it's Tattoo. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I know who I'm talking about. The little short guy off of Fantasy Island. Mr. Rourke. But they pretend as if the world is just trying to destroy them all the time. Now, in Palestine, you probably do have people trying to kill you. You walked in and tried to take half their land and then said, well, the U.S. gave it to us, so it's okay. It's not okay. And then you're kind of like pretty much committing modern day apartheid. The most ironic part of it is they're like, the Holocaust, so we get this. And I'm like, so we acknowledge the Holocaust was horrible and we can acknowledge the apartheid was horrible, but you're literally doing the same thing and justifying it by saying that the Holocaust is why you get to do it. It's very confusing. But the United States, or excuse me, Israel, like, purposely provokes people because that's the only way that they can justify the bullshit that they do. Like, we do that, right? Who do they get that tactic from? We purposely provoked Vietnam. And then we're like, I can't believe we're in a Vietnam War, but we gotta go. We even provoked Japan in a way, but that war was bound to happen because of the oil problems. Seems like all wars are fought over oil, but that's neither here nor there. But we provoke people all the time. We provoked Cuba. We provoke people to get them to jump so then we can leap. Israel does the same exact thing. But it's scary to me. It truly is. It's scary to me that our country, our leadership can be so silent. I'm very, very proud of Natalie Portman. She was supposed to receive a prize in Israel, and she refused to go. And her sentiments deeply echoed the sentiments I feel most Americans in today's world feel about its country in comparison and in contrast with its government. She said, I love the country of Israel. I love the people of Israel. I love the food. I love my Jewish culture. I love the potential. But I do not support Benjamin Netanyahu. I do not support the Israeli government. And I absolutely do not support what they're doing to the Palestinian people. And so I will not go there because I do not want it to seem like an endorsement. Is that not how we feel about the United States, people? Seriously, is that not how we feel? I love my country. I love the culture. Or in our case, I love the blending of cultures and how much access we have to the experiences of other countries, because we're like, I wouldn't call us a melting pot, but I would call us a tossed salad. But you know how you really display when you love your country? By calling out your tyrannical government, because you truly understand, or you know, the potential your country has and is unable to fulfill or reach because of your tyrannical government. And at the end of the day, the chickens come home to roost. You know why I gotta I mean, I'm an empath, so I gotta defend anybody who's in significant trouble. But when it comes to like Syria or Iraq, which is a very frustrating topic to talk about, we murdered those people. We murdered those Iraqi citizens. There's no other way to slice it. We like to be like, oh, the Iraq War. No, it was an Iraq slaughter. It was a massacre. Compare the numbers. It was a massacre. So I love my country and I love the people in it. That's why I always encourage you all to speak up, because eventually, people are going to stop putting up with our bullshit. People are going to stop allowing us to do whatever we want to. People are going to retaliate. People get mad at me all the time for not demonizing Putin, for example, or especially Fidel Castro or Che Guevara or whatever, but Putin at the moment. You know why I don't demonize Putin? Or at least uniquely? They say, well, Putin doesn't like homosexuals. We didn't legalize gay marriage until 2012, and that had zero to do with our president. Our president at the time, Barack Obama, was actually against equal rights for marriage. But that is not something that he can legislate. That's way out of his scope. It's way out of his realm. But he cannot actively vote against it. Make him look bad. They say, well, Putin, he's racist. Probably. I don't know if that's a fact, but he's probably racist. I don't know. And I'm thinking like, okay, so that checks off another block of 99% of our presidents. I'm like, if that's the case, then he's not unique in his, in his shortcomings there. Well, Putin is helping out Syria. And I'm like, well, good. Somebody needs to. Shit.
Phones are ready.
All right. And our phones lines are back on. So, Alan, if you want to come in, let me know. If anybody feels like calling in, let me know. We'll go ahead and get you on the line. Oh, wow. I think we already got... Oh, that's us. That's us. Just kidding. But my point is that people try to paint Putin as a uniquely and markedly obvious evil compared to our leaders. And I must say, that's a damn insult. That's an insult. We live in a country where we fought against Nelson Mandela during the apartheid. Like, that's really hard to top. That's really hard to top. That's probably my personal bias, by the way. But everything we know now, the benefit of hindsight, like, are we really going to pretend that Putin is like uniquely worse than our presidents have been? That he's uniquely worse than Hillary? I would venture to say that Putin's a better. You know what kind of takes the cake with all of it though? Before I take Alan's calling in, so I'm gonna take his call in a second. But what's even worse about all of it is we are clearly in the wrong about Syria. We are clearly in the wrong about Russia. I mean, what other evidence do you need at this point? We're clearly in the wrong about a plethora of foreign issues, and it's not like we're in the wrong and somebody starves or somebody goes hungry or somebody doesn't get economic prosperity like compared to the next country. No, we're in the wrong and we end lives because of it. We commit genocide. We genocided the Iraqi people. We genocided the Afghan people. We genocided the Yemeni people. And yet, leaders such as Putin and Assad that could retaliate don't, because they understand and dichotomize and have the empathy to know that we are not our leaders. We are not the drones that our leaders fire. And a lot of the people who are fighting are simply victims of propaganda. It's like, think about Finn from, if any of you have seen the new Star Wars, Finn was the detractor from the Empire. He was a detractor from the Empire. He comes up to the Rebel base. Did they kill him when he walked into the Rebel base? That's essentially what Russia and Assad would be at this point. They killed, no. And they realized, okay, you were just a victim of brainwashing, because that's what he was. He was literally a victim of brainwashing. And when he was willing to understand that and change, they allowed him to. It's the same thing. But those leaders have more empathy, more sympathy, and more reservations when it comes to pulling the trigger than our leaders do. And your number one argument for why, some people's number one arguments for why Putin is markedly worse than a Hillary Clinton, for example. Your number one, he might be racist, which I don't know, because there's not that many other races in Russia. But also, he doesn't like gay people, probably. And I'm thinking, once again, both of those two things have literally been 99% true. And to a degree, as far as the presidents against homosexuality, or at least openly practicing homosexuality, 100% of the case. There's never been a president who's advocated for equal rights for marriage. So just by that qualification, he is not close to being worse than a Hillary Clinton. So, Alan is back on the line. Let's see if we can actually hear him this time. Alan, you are live. You there, bro?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Man, it's good to finally get you on the line. What's going on, man? What's going on?
Well, that's the case that you set me on fire about. We're waiting right now for the schedule for oral argument.
You're waiting to schedule? Hold on. So, as in, it got past the dismissal phase?
Yeah.
Well, that's good stuff. That's good. Oh man, that's fantastic.
The reason why I left my comment about Bernie and Toulouse is that they're defendants in this case.
In what sense?
And because they're defendants,
I'm saying
have to be served. They're defendants.
Well, hold on. Defendants. Go ahead.
Yes, the upper house is the check and balance for the lower house.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
So it's the apportionment of House of Representatives was incorrect. It's the Senate's job to go fix it.
Yeah, but Tulsi's a Tulsi's a congresswoman though. She's not a senator.
Right, and she's a direct defendant.
In what sense?
Members of the House of Representatives are direct defendants.
Okay, so then my question is, but who's the lawyer in charge?
Oh, they have a lawyer. There's 4 lawyers that cover all of the 50 states and their legislators, because they're defendants too.
Okay, so
there's another lawyer that covers all the federal defendants, which is the House of Representatives, Congress, and the President, the Vice President, and the Secretary of Chamber of Commerce.
Got you. So what I'm saying is, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, because I know you're saying, like, you know, you said they're lying because they are defendants, but it's like being a defendant in a class action lawsuit, or being even on the, you know, when I get a letter in the mail saying I'm part of a class action lawsuit, I'm like, nice, I guess, and then I kind of like don't pay attention to it, because people make crazy lawsuits against the government all the time. It's just that none of them ever pan out. You get what I'm saying?
Well, they tried not to make this pan out, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, but not the
Anyone who's running for office, anyone running for office right now, and anyone in office should know about this case. But those actually in office do know about this case, because this case should have made them pause all their legislative actions, deal with this case, and then move forward.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, they toured the country, kept pushing legislation that they know can be challenged by law, because they don't have a quorum. They don't even have a quorum to ask for articles of impeachment.
Well, they didn't have that, I don't think, in general. But they didn't have that even if they wanted to. But nah, you are correct. You are correct. Huh?
From a legal perspective.
Oh yeah. No, I got you. You're talking about parliamentary procedure. But yes, you're correct. You're correct. I mean, that's true. But like I said, just playing devil's advocate, because even the progressives, like, there's a lot of progressive candidates, but Jill Stein doesn't know about this. Well, she might know now. But
Yeah, she does.
I about to say she might know now, but has she spoken out about it?
No, she knew about it. She knew about it, but when we did service.
How do you know?
Because I know somebody who's on the National Green Steering Committee.
So have the Green Party candidates came out and talked about this? Or do you know them? Know any by name that have spoken out about it?
As a matter of fact, one of the Greens is suing on behalf of the RNC.
On behalf of the RNC?
Yes.
Suing who?
The DNC.
On behalf of the RNC. Why is that?
Yes, and that's a civil case.
Because of what? Like,
what you have to understand is that...
Hold on, why are they suing the RNC?
Because the DNC defrauded every single taxpayer in America.
Absolutely.
By using state and federal money in a rigged election process.
Absolutely.
They defrauded every entity that ever paid taxes into that year.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. So that's what they're suing. So the RNC is now suing the Democratic Party also. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I wonder why that hasn't been national news.
But when we talk about independent media, there are things going on that you know that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things going on that I know that you don't know. Because there are not enough hours in a day to keep everybody abreast on the legal stuff that they're doing.
You know what would be a good solution to that? So what I heard is you work for this really rad network where all these independent journalists converge, and I heard you have your own podcast. And you could actually do something radical even, and like post a podcast so that we can all talk about the things that we may know that the other person may not know, so that people can get educated on these issues. I mean, it's a radical idea, Alan, but I think you should try it, man. I think that would be very helpful. You know I'm gonna keep messing with you until you post one.
Yeah, I know, but you did get my message earlier today.
Actually, I don't think I probably was on the phone, but we'll reconcile it a little bit later on this evening. But yeah, man, but you are correct. There's so much going on in this country that I really kind of get upset because, man, people bring stories to me daily, and they are not small stories. They're important stories, but we get bogged down. You know, you can only, like you said, there's only so many hours in a day. It's you don't want to just get a story and then just talk about it from an uneducated perspective, nor do you want to deliver the story in an unprofessional manner, because you have to maintain that quality of your work so that people take the story seriously. And you can only do so many of those stories in a day, and you have to constantly follow up on that same story. You can't drop it and then don't talk about it again. You can't drop it and then expect it to disappear. That's why it's important to have.
You gotta fact check it.
Say what?
The other part of it is you have to fact check it. You can't just.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Make a story because somebody looked at it, and they might be a reliable source, but it's getting harder and harder to verify information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, I would say it's getting easier to verify information. You got all kinds of ways now. So many people are so connected, and those connections have been exposed. And we have obviously the benefit of Twitter and Facebook and just so many different networks and justinform.com that we just have the benefit of so many different networks where we can fact check pretty quickly, much faster than we used to. But at the end of the day, it's important that we have networks like MCSC, just because you're correct. We need people to have the freedom to go and get their own stories, and maybe I can't cover everything. I don't have all the time in the world to cover your lawsuit, but it's extremely important. It doesn't make it less important, but that's why we have you. For Brandon, all he covers pretty much is the rigged process of our electoral system, which coincides with your story. But he doesn't. So because of how detailed he is about that, and with necessary details, he doesn't have the time to cover everything I would cover. For example, what's going on overseas, whether it be Syria, whether it be North Korea, because that's more so my specialty. And covering the undertones of election rigging and things like that, and how the intersectionality of it all. But so it's good. I'm glad we have you on to cover this story, and I'm glad that you came on to keep everybody updated with this very, very important case. So when do you? I know how cases go. I understand, but do you have any inclination as to how long it will take for y'all to get scheduled? Alan? It's kind of weird how we talk about these super important issues and then people just keep falling off the line.